Week 8 of fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to drop this week. The first guy, Josh Naylor of the Cleveland Guardians. So Naylor, he got off to a hot start the first few weeks of the season, and then over the last couple weeks, he was on the COVID list, and that really made him take a step back. Was Naylor on the season, 6 home runs, 25 RBIs, 13 runs scored, a 287 average, and a 342 on base. But like I mentioned now, those last couple weeks where he was out of the lineup, it definitely hasn't helped him. In the last couple weeks here, 138 average with only 1 homer and 3 RBIs with 3 runs scored. And I know only in 30 at-bats, but right here, we've seen a lot of guys early in the season who in the unknown coming into the year get off to a hot start, and then the struggles continue and the droppable players. And I think this is going to be the situation with Naylor here right now. Naylor's been dropped in 2% of fantasy leagues, but he's still owned the 58% of leagues. So the last few games here for him, May 23rd at Houston 0-4, May 24th at Houston 0-4, May 25th at Houston 0-3 with a run, May 26th at Detroit 0-4, May 28th at Detroit 2-5 with a run and 2 RBIs, May 29th at Detroit 1-4, and May 30th versus the Royals 0-3. So right here, he's in a big slump, is Naylor. And I know last season he came up towards the end of the season, and he did have 7 homers, 21 RBIs, and 233 at-bats, but the batting average was pretty low at 253, and the on-base to batting average wasn't great, with a 301 to a 253, so he don't draw many walks. He's an early swinger of the count, but I'll give him this. His strikeouts are definitely down. Last season, only 45 and 233 at-bats, and this season, only 16 and 101 at-bats, so he definitely puts the ball in play, but he's an early count swinger and a guy who got off to a hot start showing a lot of power, but right now, he's been struggling here, and I would drop him. But if he gets hot again, you could go out there and get him. This is part of the fantasy game. Sometimes you pick up guys, they're good for a few weeks, and then once the hot streak ends, you just drop them, and that's the situation here with Naylor. The next guy, Max Kepler of the Minnesota Twins. So Kepler, he's been up and down over the last couple seasons in terms of fantasy baseball. So far this season, not a horrible start. 6 home runs, 22 RBIs, 21 runs scored, 247 average, and a 353 on base. So this guy definitely draw walks. He gets on base, and he puts the ball in play as well. Only 28 strikeouts in 146 at-bats. So right here, the last couple weeks, though, the average is good, 257, but only 1 homer, 7 RBIs, and 9 runs scored. So Kepler, he's a hit-or-miss type of player, but this guy's a guy who could carry a team for a couple weeks if he does get hot. But fantasy owners, they're not being patient with him, and I'm not being patient with him as well now. He's got the quad injury. He's been dropped in 5% of leagues. And besides that one big ball game in last week where he hit a grand slam, he pretty much has done nothing. May 21st at Kansas City, 1-4 with a run, a rib, a stolen base. May 22nd at Kansas City, 2-4, 2 runs and a rib. May 23rd versus Detroit, 1-3 with the mentioned grand slam and 2 runs scored. May 24th versus Detroit, 0-3 with a run. May 25th versus Detroit, 0-4. May 26th versus the Royals, 0-2. May 27th versus the Royals, 2-5 with a run. May 28th versus the Royals 0-2, and games May 29th and May 30th he missed. So right here, they got a doubleheader today, is the Twins, and we'll see if Kepler could play in any of these ball games. But right now, like I mentioned, that grand slam pretty much saved his whole week last week, and he's been in a slump pretty much. He had a good week or two early in the season, but besides that, he's been a pretty cold player. Next guy's Reyes of the Cleveland Guardians. So Reyes, we know he's got great power, 30 home runs last season, but this season here, off to a horrible start, and he's also on the injured list as well now. So on the season, 3 home runs, 12 RBIs, 9 runs scored, already 57 strikeouts in 133 at-bats, a 195 average, and a 255 on base. So last season, like I mentioned, 30 and 85, but he's going to be a high strikeout guy. He don't have much protection over there in Cleveland is Reyes. And right now with the injury as well, he's a guy that's easily droppable in my opinion. And it's a hamstring injury, which obviously could take a month or two. And also an injury you could re-aggravate for weeks. One little tweak, you could be out weeks once again. So right now, still owned in 58% of fantasy leagues. But I would drop Reyes, even though he's already missed 5-6 games with the injury. There's no reason to hold on to him, and I see him owned in still 58% of leagues, which is too much with the 195 average. And if he at least had some power, he was justifiable. But right now, he's definitely droppable. May 20th versus Detroit, 1-for-4. May 22nd, 0-for-4 versus Detroit. May 23rd at Houston, 1-for-4. And May 24th at Houston, 0-for-3. So right here, he's been out since May 24th. Here's Reyes. And I would drop him with the injury and the poor start. The next guy, Connor Joe of the Colorado Rockies. So Joe, he got off to a great start coming out of nowhere this season. But now he's come back down to earth over the last few weeks here. On the season, 4 home runs, 13 RBIs, 24 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 271 average, and a good on base, though, at 352. But right here, I know he's the leadoff hitter most nights. Only 4 home runs. RBIs are poor at 13. And the batting average has dipped down big time over the last few weeks, where this guy was over 300. So the last couple weeks here for Joe, no homers, 2 RBIs, 3 runs scored at 245 average, and a 302 on base. So right now, still owned in 63% of fantasy leagues here, but he has been dropped in 4%, and he's just not doing much. Like I mentioned here, is Connor Joe. May 23rd at Pittsburgh, 2-for-5. May 24th at Pittsburgh, 1-for-4 with a rib. May 25th at Pittsburgh, 1-for-5. May 26th at Washington, 1-for-4. And May 28th at Washington in a doubleheader, 1-for-9 with a run and a rib. And May 30th versus Miami, 1-for-4. So right here, he's definitely struggling. I know that doubleheader made his batting average take a big tumble down, going 1-for-9. But right here, he just don't hit home runs really, and he don't drive in runs, so he's a player I would drop this week. And the 5th and final hitter I look to drop is Alec Baum and the Philadelphia Phillies. So Baum's still owned in 50% of fantasy leagues and a former top prospect in this Philly system. But this Philly team, they've been sinking down the standings quickly over the last couple weeks here. And Alec Baum, he pretty much hasn't done much either. Same situation and almost similar stats to Connor Joe as well. 3 home runs, 18 RBIs, 24 runs scored, a stolen base, a 269 average, and a 308 on base on the season. But the last few weeks here, he's been horrible, is Alec Baum. A homer, 3 RBIs, 7 runs scored, 186 average, and a 226 on base, including 22 strikeouts in 59 at-bats. So this Philly team is a unit. No one is hitting besides Segura and Bryce Harper. Everyone else pretty much under the Mendoza line in the last few weeks and not even showing power. So right here, Alec Baum, he's struggling mightily, and there's no reason to hold on to him. I know he's got great potential. I know he was a former top prospect in the Philly system, but right now, there's no reason to hold on to him. If he gets going again, he's going to be out there in tons of fantasy leagues where you'll have the opportunity to pick him up, where he's half and half right now, 50% on teams and 50% not. So the last few games here for Baum: May 24th at Atlanta, 1-for-4, 2 runs. May 25th at Atlanta, 2-for-5 with a run. May 26th at Atlanta, 0-for-4. May 27th at the Mets, 2-for-5 with a run. May 28th at the Mets, 0-for-5. May 29th at the Mets, 0-for-4 with a run. May 30th versus the Giants, 0-for-3 with an RBI. So right here, I think he's swinging for the fences with all these strikeouts in the last couple weeks. And this Philly team as a whole, they're just taking bad approaches at the plate and chasing bad pitches, and Alec Baum is definitely part of that, and he's a hitter I would drop this week. So that's a few hitters I would drop here in week 8 of the fantasy baseball season.